Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Alright, so PvPoke.com is like the greatest human being on earth, and he updated his Great League training analysis, which means he now has the latest data for Great League. And if you haven't already, well, Great League hasn't came back yet, but it's going to come back like pretty shortly. Anyways, I'm going to go over a quick analysis on the top 5 teams, and hopefully that will help you out. Remember, these teams are statistically proven to help you perform well in Great League. In average, they do more. On average, they will help you win more than others. And it helps you identify patterns because a lot of people use this website. A lot of people that use this website are probably playing Go Battle League. So as you see here, Mew is still a boss. Mew is a fantastic save switch, and it has been prominent all throughout Season 1, and it's, well, all throughout the preseason up until now. And as you see, the Surf Wild Charge variation is individual rating ranks incredibly high. So does Registeel, surprisingly. Registeel, even though Registeel got nerfed, it's still really, really good for Great League. Crystalia's bulk also allows it to do very well in this cup, and of course, our favorite wall-face Bastiodon is number 4. You could tell I'm not happy about that. It's freaking wall-face piece of garbage, tap-tap, walling everything you know to existence, and the reason why everybody's using Pancake nowadays. No, seriously, one of the reasons why everyone's using Registeels or they are using Galarian Stunfisk is because of Bastiodon. Because, die, Bastiodon. Anyways, the interesting thing here is, like, not many really fascinating changes. These Pokemon, other than, I'd say, like, Registeel, the rest aren't really a surprise, except for Alolan Ninetales. Well, not even Alolan Ninetales Charm, to be honest with you. You'll see Charm A9 a lot in the meta. You also see the Red Ball variant. So when you go into battle and you do lead against it, you can let it hit you once, but if you see the hearts, then it's probably going to be a Charmer. If you don't see the hearts, then it's not a Charmer. Anyways, as you see here, a lot of these Pokemon are featured in the top teams. So I'm gonna, instead of individual ratings, one of the interesting here is Frostus as well. The rest are pretty standard. Here are the top teams. As you see, I'm gonna always, as I do with all my top 5 videos, I will identify the top 5 teams for this meta. Surprisingly, an ABB team actually has entered the top 5, which isn't really a surprise considering that Bastiodon and a lot of things are in the back, so I can see how Scrafty is doing so well in this meta. Alright, so team number 5 features Hypno, Shadow Hypno. Oh, I didn't know that. Shadow Hypno, Scrafty, and Umbreon. So this team is actually, this is a variation, or rather, not really a variation, just it's a Shadow Hypno lead of one of my really good friends, Vergyverg. I put his link in the description. You should sub to him. He innovated it. He kind of put this team together. He put the Psychic Double Dark team together, and he popularized it. It helped them reach legend, and helped a lot of other people reach legend. So give him a check. This is, in my opinion, well, statistically, this is actually the most effective ABB team of this current meta. So make sure you check them out. And this one actually features Shadow Hypno. So it's a double punch Hypno. Fire Punch and Thunder Punch. I can see why a double punch Hypno would make this thing, because with Thunder Punch you cover the Pelipper meta, or the water or the Weather Ball meta. You cover it pretty well because of Politoed and because of Pelipper. Along with that, you are able to take down Azu. The Fire Punch also allows you to take on things like Pancake, Registeel. So Registeel in the 2-shield will lose against Hypno. Fire Punch also is very useful for those grass types that are flying around now that to counter Galarian Stunfisk and Venusaur. Like Venusaur's pretty popular now, so the meta's kind of shifted a little bit to where grass types have always been viable. It's just the pattern kind of like went out because you usually see flyers in the back, now you'll see grass types in the back. So, yeah. Chaos! Anyways, this features Scrafty and Umbreon as the back row. Many of you have probably already fought this line, so I'm not really going too into it. It features, I'm assuming Umbreon is your save switch, unless you win the lead and then they throw something into you, such as Galarian Stunfisk has their save switch. Actually, I think that's the reason why this team has done so well. A popular thing in the back is actually Venusaur Double Steel. So Venusaur Double Steel are a variation of Venusaur in the lead with like a Steel type in the back. Because Safe Switch, Galarian Stunfisk is really popular, Scrafty is really powerful in this meta. Scrafty also takes other Psychic types, and it really gives a hard time to other things as well. Well, just a Dark. That's why this team works so well. Dark Archetype really takes advantage of the Ghost Switch system, as well as the Psychic Switch system because of Mew. Anyways, as you see here, you probably have played this team a lot. The only real thing I'd probably have to describe is Hypno. But I've pretty much already described it. Anyways, great, insane amount of bulk with Umbreon and with Hypno. This team is insanely bulky. Even Shadow Hypno, yes, it loses defense, but it's still pretty tanky. It's also very consistent, also very safe. Doesn't have a lot of coverage because this team actually doesn't have a lot of it. Like, some typings will like, of course, Steels will give this a hard time, especially things like Registeel, if you happen to. But I guess that's why Shadow Hypno's in the lead, because Shadow Hypno can beat Registeel in the 2-shield, like I mentioned. So this team is very powerful. However, regardless, the double Dark Archetype is very, very strong and very, very versatile. As you see here, you beat a lot of things in the lead. You beat Azu, you beat Polito with Hitmontop, Registeel in the 2s again with Hypno. Medicham, which has been a popular fighter as well as a lead. Rainy Cast Form, Meganium, etc. With Fire Punch Hypno, you do a lot of great things against this Grass Archetype. So you see Scrafty and Umbreon do a lot of great things against the Psychic as well as Ghost types around. That's why it's really, really freaking good. So as you see here, very, very strong. The potential threats, of course, is Charmers. Wigglytuff 2-shield strat is very strong against this, and that's one of the big issues with this team in general. Charmers or a Play Rough Azu is not going to be your best friend. It's going to absolutely give you a whole lot of hell, because Azumarill, other than Umbreon's last resort, it pretty much walls Scrafty, unless you're running Acid Spray. If you are, you're a monster. But Azumarill is, well, it's freaking Azu, what else? So that, or you see Galvantula lead, etc. I don't think you'll likely see like a Jumpluff, a Ledian, Masquerade, etc. However, ironically, Scrafty itself as a lead, which is somewhat popular, actually does well against this entire team. Just because Scrafty, Scrafty into Shadow Hypno. So that's basically it. Also, Flyers do give this team a problem, such as Altaria. Skarmory, not so much, just because Skarmory takes neutral damage from Skarmory so much just because it takes like neutral damage from Scrafty's counter. So, and you also have Fire Punch with Shadow Hypno and Thunder Punch. So you can kind of be a little fancy, sack Shadow Hypno, farm down with Scrafty, and then do some really fancy play or something like that. Anyways, as you see here, does real like against some like Deoxys defense, Galarian Stunfisk, which are very popular as well. But that's why you have Hypno with Fire Punch. It's to cover Galarian Stunfisk and the popular Fire-type lead. The only thing that would give you a really big problem, I think, would be Mudboys like Swampert and things like Sableye. Sableye in the lead would give you a huge issue just because it would trap Shadow Hypno really hard, and Sableye with Foul Play is a monster. A return will hurt your Scrafty or Umbreon. It won't do a lot, but it's gonna do enough to, it's gonna do like a quarter, so it'll do a lot. It won't do enough to KO you in one shot, but it'll do a decent amount of damage if it lands. Really good team. Like I said, I'm not gonna go too much into coverage. Fergie has a bunch of videos featuring this team, but again, this team overall does very strong with the Steel type Archetype in the back, and Double Dark has been a very popular variation as far as ABB goes. Some people have used Sableye instead. I think another variation, again, Sableye instead of Scrafty, just because Sableye is that good. But anyways, really good team, really powerful, does really well against the current Weather Ball / whatever the heck's going on in this meta. Team number 4 features Tropius, Sableye, and Galarian Stunfisk. So, I'm not really surprised that this team's number 4. It's actually, so, Season 3... like, the Season 3 meta team, up until, like, later on, was Tropius, Stunfisk, and Azumarill. That was the big meta team back in the day. And all this variation really does is replace the Azu Safe Switch with a Sableye, which isn't a bad idea, because Sableye Return is the best Safe Switch in the game, especially if it's an XL. Well, statistically it is. So all this does is really replace Azu with Sableye, which does really well just because Sableye with Return can beat Azu. As you see here, great team overall. Well, when you have 3 super Metamons, it's not really that surprising. That's really good. Not gonna go too deep into it. This is a, like, if you've played, like, this is a great thing. The only thing I would probably, like, really limit you is that Tropius is a regional. Because of that, it's really hard to obtain, but is the most powerful regional ever. ever. Even when Relicanth had Ancient Power not debuffed, Tropius was still the most powerful. It says a lot when, in the preseason, something that the regional that is very powerful is still powerful to this day. Says a lot. Anyways, Tropius is a super metamon, while all three of these, as I mentioned before, are, so it's not surprised that it does really well against this meta. All three Pokemon are, well, two Pokemon are really tanky, the other one is a fantastic safe switch and puts a ton of pressure. Also works well against a variety of leads, as you see here. Does really well, with your greatest potential threats being literally an Obstagoon. Even though Tropius doesn't have a really bad matchup against Obstagoon, Obstagoon does really well against Sableye, Galarian, Stunfisk, especially if it gets the boost. Sunny Castform, you probably won't see it that much, but you know what? It's actually pretty good in this meta for one simple reason. It beats Tropius. It does more damage now that Ember's buff. It can beat Tropius. It also does a handful of a lot of damage to Galarian Stunfisk. And ironically, Galarian Stunfisk itself. As you see here, Flyer leads really take advantage of Tropius, but Sableye is such a fantastic safe switch that statistically this team does rank at number 4 overall. You can pivot a lot with Sableye, Galarian Stunfisk. Sableye, again, most powerful safe switch. Galarian Stunfisk, probably the thing you hate the most in Sliced Bread, and the most powerful Steel-type Pokemon in the Great League since Season 2, when it got released. How do I know? It's because I've used it a lot. Yeah. How much does it hurt? Well, that's the only Super Metamon I've used. Well, yeah, it's the only Super Metamon I've used in a core, okay? So, yeah. Team number 3 features Galarian Stunfisk, Pelipper, and Tropius. Again, two super metamons, just features Stunfisk in the lead. Pelipper as your safe switch. Pelipper is a fantastic safe switch in this meta because Wing Attack, even though if you do encounter a grass-type Pokemon, yeah, it does resist Weather Ball, but if you can Hurricane it, 9 times out of 10, they will die, and Pelipper does a lot of damage. It also wins CMP, so Pelipper is a very fantastic safe switch. Being able to beat a lot of other popular safe switches like Galarian Stunfisk. Yes, Galarian Stunfisk loses in a 2-shield against Pelipper. I hate Pelipper because people have used it a lot against me, and yeah, Pelipper is good. He's good. But I believe G-Fisk as a lead has been very, very powerful to begin with since Season 2, so it's not really a surprise. Anyways, this team does, again, pretty much same thing as the last team. Great coverage, both consistently, and great safety. Just because you have two meta tanks and one of the best safe switches in the game as far as the patterns go. As you see here, very, very powerful combination. You do have double coverage against a lot of your weaknesses. If you do happen to use Pelipper, and you Hurricane Altaria, you can possibly take back your switch, as long as you can land Hurricane on a lot of these mons. Well, not every single one of them, but, a lot of them. As long as you land it, you're gonna do pretty dang well. But as you see with the Tropius in the back, Tropius is a fantastic closer because it really takes advantage of that fighter slash grass archetype in the back. If you do happen to line up against both of them, Tropius does a lot. Because it's the strongest and it's the most powerful freaking... Yeah, you've probably seen this team running around in Great League already, so I'm not going to go too much into it. Again, along with the previous team, essentially all this team really does is put Tropius in the back, and then it puts Pelipper as your safe switch. That's all it really does. Statistically, it does really well because Galarian Stunfisk and Tropius and Pelipper all spam really well, and if you look at your potential threats, Mew and Deoxys defense, that's not that bad. And you can also threaten Mew and Deoxys defense with Galarian Stunfisk. There's a lot of plays you can make. With such few weaknesses, and Pelipper being your biggest threat, along with Venusaur, this team actually does insanely well against the Season 7 Great League meta. So the next team we have is something that I've never seen before. Absolutely have never seen before in my entire life. You know, people totally don't post on Twitter or all this other stuff or on social media or just flat out copy people that stream on Twitch. Anyways, yeah. Anyways, this team is actually very popular. It's been used before. Shadow, Abomasnow, Azu, Sableye. I've seen it before. This variation's been used before. Abomasnow is really powerful because of the new Weather Ball buff plus Powder Snow buff that it's got in Azu, and you've seen Sableye twice already, so you kind of already know what it does. Anyways, this is a super meta team. Abomasnow doesn't seem psychic stick, but it is actually very, very threatening and does really well as a lead. Azu and Sableye can take switch for you, and you can realign, and then you can end their lives with Weather Ball, Death by Weather Ball. It's not really that hard to figure out. Anyways, this team doesn't have a decent... This thing actually doesn't have a decent amount of bulk, only because Sableye and Abomasnow aren't the bulkiest things in the world, but you got freaking Azu. So this team features Hydro Pump Ice Beam instead of Hydro Pump against Ice Beam Play Rough or Play Rough Hydro Pump. I'm assuming they use, like Azu's, the Hydro Pump is used to take back things from, like, it takes advantage of the Steel typing in the back, because if you have Ice and you have Play Rough, you get walled by Steels in the charge move sense. With Hydro Pump, you could take back Switch, and with Hydro Pump, you can take out Bastiodon. So Hydro Pump is purely there to take out the Steel archetype in the back. As you see here, this team does insanely well against the meta. Gee whiz, what a surprise, with only your greatest threats being fighters, as you see here. Fighters are your only greatest threats, and along with Umbreon and probably Registeel. Registeel ironically still walls Abomasnow, and it does really well against it because Abomasnow is really squishy, especially as a shadow, and Registeel's Flash Cannon will eat you in the next dimension. Again, your weakness is flyers and fighters. There's a lot of things you can do against the rest of the archetypes. For example, you can make plays against Skarmory, you can make plays against things like Medicham, you could sack Abomasnow, but generally, with Azu and Sableye, you're pretty dang safe in the back. Your biggest threats are going to be Galvantula. Galvantula does a number on you just because it can debuff you, and it actually does a huge amount. Like, it's going to rack up damage against all three of these mons. You could try to force out both of your shields with Abomasnow, and then take it out with Azu or Sableye in the back. Mind you, as long as you keep that Spooter alive, it's going to take you a lot of your HP. Dugong is another problem just because it can debuff everything. It debuffs you to oblivion. And even though with Ice Beam Hydro Pump, you technically wall Azu, but Azu walls you. The only difference is that you can't debuff Dugong. Dugong will debuff you. So it's going to be a really boring matchup. Let's see, Zapdos, Magnezone, and Roserade. It looks like, well, flyer types in general do give you a problem. Not going to see Zapdos, Magnezone, or Roserade very much. You might see Bastiodon and Registeel. So, the thing about Shadow Abomasnow, what makes it a great league, is because it does so much damage. It also, however, you do lose a lot of popular leads, but that's what Azu and Sableye are for. If you do happen to catch Venusaur in the lead, which is very so popular, as well as, I would say things like, what does Abomasnow be? That's Ice Tropius, which is also a popular lead, then Azu and Sableye can clean up. So, not too hard of a team to run, you could probably figure out very sure, but Abomasnow, safe switch into either Sableye, or you safe switch into Azu. Do it accordingly. Return Sableye is probably your safe switch, and then Azu going Azu. Alright, so we have Stunfisk, Mew, and Venusaur as the #1 team, and statistically, as performance-wise, the most powerful team on PvPoke.com. I don't sound that excited. Yeah, that's because I'm not. This is a mega meta team. In fact, all 5 of these teams are mega meta teams. There's nothing unique at all about any of them. Venusaur, you might think it might be a surprise, but the reason it's not really a surprise is because I've seen a lot of my friends or other content creators using Venusaur in the back. Just because it's really good for 2 reasons. One, you can use Sludge Bomb to take out the Alolan Ninetales. Sludge Bomb can take out Altaria in the back as well, as long as you can land 2 of them and you have some chip damage. Frenzy Plant's overpowered, and Poison resists Fighting and Charmers. As someone like me who's been doing this for a really long time, or decent amount, I would say decent amount of time. Well, actually, I've been doing this since Season 1, so technically that is a long time. Anyways, Venusaur is really freaking good. I've also seen it a lot sometimes in Season 1, so it's not like it's new, it's just not that common. Mew and Stunfisk, however, are really common. The interesting thing about the Mews in this cup is that Mews are rocking Flame Charge Grass Knot. So Flame Charge Grass Knot happens to basically be the epitome of, I don't know why. So I think that people are running away from Wild Charge because of 2 reasons. Wild Charge debuffs you, and 2, Grass Knot actually takes out the Mud Boys. And it does, yeah, it takes out the Mud Boys, and it doesn't put you in that danger of getting debuffed. It allows you to rack up damage with Flame Charge, and Flame Charge can cover the Steel archetype. So basically, Mew is really, well, if you didn't know, you know, Mew is really freaking good. And the Flame Charge Grass Knot variation actually overtakes Wild Charge and the Surf variation, just because with Flame Charge, you can also take out the grass types in the back. So Mew with Flame Charge actually isn't a bad idea. It's actually really freaking good. This team's mega meta. Let's get started. As you see here, even though this team doesn't have a lot of coverage and bulk, it basically nukes everything to oblivion. Venusaur isn't as bulky as its Ultra League cousin, And with Mew isn't super bulky either, but it does decently. Like, if you resist something like Counter or like Power Punch, it won't take a lot of damage. But it does enough to basically slay or your opponent's shields, or slay their Pokemon before it actually goes down. That's why it's incredibly safe and incredibly consistent. It does a ton of damage. Basically, this, like I said, you basically... You just run over the meta with these 3 Pokemon. As you see here, Delaran Stunfisk is G-Fisk going G-Fisk. I don't even need to explain it. Mew is your safe switch. Venusaur is your closer. So Mew will take your opponent's shields. You will use Flame Charge and Grass Knot accordingly, depending on what you're facing. And then you will send in Venusaur to do something fancy, like to farm down. Or if you win the lead, you basically just eviscerate your opponent. Because with Mew, Flame Charge and Grass Knot covers a wide variety of the meta, and with Shadow Claw damage ramps up with that Flame Charge buff. So Wild Charge and Surf has actually gotten statistically down, and I've noticed that when I was actually playing Greatly, back when I went back into it. Anyways, the weaknesses of this team, the reason why it's so good, you don't see a lot of this team's weaknesses. Your biggest weakness is Toxicroak. That's pretty much it. Yes, you can see a Sunny Castform, you won't see too many. But this team's biggest weakness is, like I said, its biggest weakness is probably Toxicroak. Deoxys defense, you can kind of wall it. So basically, fighters or whatever's weak to Stunfisk, that's your biggest problem. Other than that, this team actually does really well against a lot of the meta. Unless you're facing, like, double Dark, then Mew is kind of like... Yeah, then Mew's kind of, like, dead. But, like, you can still do very, very well. Statistically, if this team has this team made #1, so there's a lot of outs. I can't see them, but I don't think I really need to try that much, just because, like I said, this is a very mega meta team. Very powerful. If you do have a Mew, yeah, well, that's the keyword. If you do have a Great League Mew, it's really, really good, and expect to see Flame Charge and Grass Knot as a more popular variation than Wild Charge or Surf. Anyways, guys, that's the top 5 teams. Hopefully they help you out really well. Sadly, well, meta is meta, but I don't think I've ever seen the Great League chart so dominated by super mega meta lines or content creator lines. I would say that's the biggest problem with Pokemon Go PvP, is that there is no limitations to the meta. There is no bans list, there is no stoppages to basically barrier to entry. If you don't have Mew, guess what? That's a problem. If you like a Mew, but like if you Mew's against you, probably don't have a Mew. There's not a lot, and Mandibuzz is another example. For example, that's a 12k egg. You gotta hatch a 12k egg, then use resources, and then use dust. So, yeah, it's just what it is. It's the same 3 months so far until things change. There might be moveset changes on the second half like they did before, but until then, this is the 5 you are with. If it ever updates, or well, when it updates, actually, it will update, but when it does update, I'll do analysis on that. But the top 5 teams seem to be mega meta lines. Hypno and Double Dark is going to be your go-to ABB line if you want to use it. Very powerful, very approve of all of these. And it's because they're mega meta. Anyways, if you guys are using these teams, they'll serve you very well. I'm pretty surprised about, like, this Jumpluff Galvantula. Whoever's using this team to, like, break it in the top, you're a freaking champion. Because this team is just, like, just Jumpluff lead in general is just so surprising. It's basically like it's a bulkier Tropius. And it's super cool. Anyways, good luck on your guys' Go Battle League sets. If you haven't liked, please like and subscribe. I will do when this updates again, I will put the next, and I will do another analysis. But all these teams will serve you well. And, again, good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I'll see you guys on the next video.